Hey, everybody, welcome to Facebook Live. It is good to somewhat see you, and this is the first time that we've run this in quite a while, and so someone was telling me when you do Facebook Live, they said Facebook will actually recognize how many people are clicking the like button and clicking the hearts floating up the screen, and the more hearts that go up and the more people that click like, the more people Facebook will actually show the video to. And so I thought, okay, how can we get people to click like and hit a bunch of hearts? And so I kind of cheated a little bit, and I came up with a method that's going to get us just a bunch of hearts to start the video. And so I've got a little secret weapon I'm going to draw onto the set here. So I thought I'd cheat a little bit and bring this guy to be part of the show with me. This is little Luis Rafael. Say hello. You want to say hello? Yeah, so he's our little guy. Don't eat the mic. That's a little slobber. And so I thought I'd have little Lewis here for a little bit on the show with you just to get some cheap parts. I know it's kind of utilitarian of me to use a child in this manner, but it's all for souls, and so that's okay. But thank you guys for joining us, Facebook Live. What I want to do today, for one, we got a couple of really exciting announcements that are going to come up in a moment, but we want to take this time to kind of answer any questions that you have on anything under the sun, on, how do I know this is the right guy for me? How do I break free from porn? How do I get a 7-month-old child from ripping my headset off? How did I meet my wife? Just why are girls weird? Like literally any question you have, everything is open season. And so I want to invite you to go on ahead and just post your questions below on Facebook. And I've got a buddy out in Colorado who's going to be shooting those questions over to me. And then I'm going to just be going through your questions, but a couple things exciting coming up. For one, many of you may know that we are coming up with real soon. We've got a conference coming up. I'm going to hand over little Lewis here to Kristalina, and she's going to take him for a little while. Yes, he is cute. Katie Bailey, thank you for the comment. So there's El Guapo. Oh, there you go. All right. So a couple things. One, you may know that we are launching our first ever virtual conference called the Catholic Love Life Conference, and I'm super pumped up. This thing is coming. We've got over 7,000 people that have registered in the past couple of days. It is completely free. Anybody can tune in and watch this thing. We've got topics. I'll just look at some of the speaker titles that have come in. Singleness and how to discern your vocation. Is he the one? Is she the one? When engagement gets tough. Porn-proofing your marriage, spicing up your married life. Who's doing that? Oh, Father Leo Patalinghong. Way to go, Father Leo. Looking forward to that one on spicing up your married life. Someone's doing one on infertility. Couples struggling with that. Made for love, homosexuality, and finding home. John Paul II and the Call to Love by Father Roger Landry. He's awesome. Mother Olga just committed to speak at the conference. If you're not familiar with her, some people affectionately call her the Mother Teresa of Baghdad over from the Middle East. She's an incredible, awesome Mother Superior of religious order. And what we got is basically 70-plus presenters that are going to be giving TED Talks, which is just like a 15-minute talk on all kinds of topics. We got Father Augustino Torres, Father Josh Jackson, Christopher West, Jesse Romero, Sister Bethany Madonna, Janet Bankovic, Danielle Bean, Teresa Tamio, Father Dave Pavanka, just real practical how to live this stuff out. And what I would ask for you is if you could, please share this. If you got an email list, if you can put it on your social media, blast this thing out because it is completely free. All you got to do is click the link in the description here at Facebook. You register for free. It's 2 weeks from now, May 22nd to 24th. And it's actually, Mother Olga texted me today and just said, did you know that Friday the 22nd is the feast of St. Rita? And if you're not familiar with St. Rita, a lot of us think, oh, saints just had this great old life. This is a teenage girl who entered into a marriage kind of forced by her parents. Her husband turned out to be a cheater. He was physically abusive, emotionally abusive, just a horrible creep of a guy. But she prayed for this man's conversion. Her sons and her husband ended up dying at an early age. And she entered a convent, became an extraordinary, exceptionally holy nun who came from a background of domestic violence, of suffering. And so it's kind of neat to have as a patroness before we go into this weekend of what love looks like, kind of a patroness of broken families and of people that have gone through some hurt. And so this weekend is just going to be practical stuff on how to heal, how to start over, break free from porn, discover your vocation. It's for everybody from teens to young adults, to single, not so young adults. We got married couples, parenting tips. Everything's going to be at the Catholic Love Life Conference. So click on the link and join that thing for free. Second thing, our big kind of announcement for today is The podcast has finally arrived. As of today, we are launching on iTunes. It'll be up on Spotify real soon if it's not already. The Love is Greater Than Lust podcast. For years, people have been telling me, oh, dude, you got to do a podcast. And I'm like, no, I'm too busy. I've got like 150 assemblies to give every year. I just don't have time for a podcast. And God's like, oh, that's your excuse. You don't have time. Well, I can take care of that. And how about we just cancel all of your assemblies with coronavirus? And so sure enough, all the assemblies are off the docket for now. And so we're launching this podcast. We've already created 3 that are uploaded for you to subscribe and listen to. The first one's kind of premiere. What is love? What is lust? What is chastity? How do we know the difference between love and lust and passion and sexual desire? Second one, we get into my boyfriend looks at porn. I mean, how am I supposed to deal with this? The whole podcast is dedicated to that one topic. Next one is he the one or is she the one? How can you know when this person comes into your life if that's the one that may God have planned for you? And so each podcast is going to go after one particular topic. And I think one reason I put off doing this is I always thought of it as, well, what am I going to do for my show? And then God kind of hit me up side the head like, Jason, this is not your show. This is their show. And so we want essentially you to run the show. Basically, you tell us whatever you want us to answer, and we're going to spend the whole show answering that. You submit the questions to us, and that dictates where we go with this podcast. So it belongs completely to you, and we will go after whatever direction, whatever question that you have. And so what I would ask, if you can not only subscribe to this thing, but if you click like and you review it and you share it, apparently on iTunes, that'll drive it up their list of interest, and they'll end up showing it to more people. And we don't want you to do this just for our sake so more people listen to us. This will actually expose this podcast, Love is Greater Than Lust, to more people who probably never heard of this message of chastity before. And so please share this thing on your social media, share it with your friends, pass it around. Let's drive it up the list on iTunes, and let's teach the world the true meaning of human love. And then last thing that we're also launching is a Patreon page as a way to stay more connected to you. And so if you're not familiar with Patreon, this is a way for people who support our ministry to come behind it and support it financially. And in exchange, we give you a bunch of cool stuff. For example, you can pick your tier. You just go to the link on Facebook here, pick your tier of support and sign up. And then you get the benefits. We'll send you free t-shirts, free autographed books. I'll give you my email. We'll give you a personal phone call. We'll create personal videos to answer questions that you submit to us with whatever you're going on in your life. Meet up in person when I come to your town, do lunch or whatever. So check out, if you just go to patreon.com, just hit the link on the side, and you click your level of support. And what that does is help us to keep growing the podcast, getting the equipment, all the engineering, video editing, all that stuff behind the scenes is through Patreon. But, you know, if there's anything I want to push you to today, it's this conference coming up. And so for the next 10 days or so, every single weekday until the conference, at this exact time, 8 p.m. Eastern, I'm going to bring on a different guest on Facebook Live. And so tomorrow, it's going to be Chris Stefanik. We're going to spend about 15 minutes at the top of the hour interviewing him. You could submit questions. We'll toss them over to Chris Stefanik. On Wednesday, we'll have Kelsey Skoke on the program. Now, Kelsey is a woman who wrote this book called Uncompromising Purity. It's not just a guy problem. Thanks be to God, a book that actually came out that explains that lust and sexual desire, temptation, porn is not just a male issue. And so on Wednesday, Kelsey is going to be on the program at this time. Thursday, we got Damon Owens in Theology of the Body. Friday, we got Sarah Swafford, who wrote this book called Emotional Virtue, How to Have Drama-Free Relationships. There's a concept. And also with her husband, Andrew Swafford, also known affectionately as Doc Swaff. So Friday, Sarah and Andrew Swafford are going to be joining us. Monday, we got Matt Fradd with his eccentric Australian beard and accent is going to be joining us from Pints with Aquinas. Tuesday, we got Paul J. Kim, if you've ever seen him. Awesome beatboxer, amazing presenter. Wednesday, we got Deacon Harold Burke-Sivers. And then on Thursday, Dr. Ted Sri from the Augustine Institute, talking about men, women, and the mystery of love. So every weeknight from now until the conference launches next Friday, at this time on Facebook Live, we're going to have different guests every single day. You can shoot questions over to them. And all this is to ramp up to the launch of the virtual Catholic Love Life Conference on Friday, the 22nd. And so we got questions coming in on Skype. And so I thought I would pull this up and start answering questions. First question, how did I meet my wife, Kristalina? Okay, well, I was actually doing prison ministry at the time, and she looked like really cute and orange, and so I thought I'd bring her home. No, just kidding. She wasn't that bad. I actually met Kristalina in the Bahamas. I was speaking out there at a conference. It was a chastity conference in the Bahamas for 5 days. I need more of those gigs. And it was just training leaders how to promote chastity in their different countries and states. And we met there and kind of hit it off. And then she went back to Denver. I went back to California. And we kind of had a long distance friendship thing going on for a while. And then she came out to visit me in San Diego. And I said, hey, I got a chastity talk I'm doing, tomorrow at a high school. Do you want to get on stage for a few minutes, do the talk with me? And she's like, oh, I don't know. I've never given, a chastity talk before. I'm like, oh, you'd be awesome. Just give it a shot. She's like, well, what should I say? I said, well, let's go to adoration now. Jesus will tell you. So I went to adoration. Sure enough, she agreed to do it. Next morning, we have this talk. And she just talked for 5 minutes, but I'm telling you, dude, she knocked them dead. And they were coming up afterwards and hugging her and crying and dumping their boyfriends. And I'm like, hey, we make a pretty good team here. So we continued to speak as a dating couple. And then I eventually actually proposed to her during a high school assembly in front of about 800 students. I figured she couldn't say no in front of all of them. And so nobody knew it was going to happen except for, 10 seniors in the front row. And at the end of the talk, I kind of gave them a wink, and they got up and started leaving the talk. And Crystal's like, where are they going? And I'm like, oh, I probably have a volleyball game or something. And they went behind the bleachers where I had hidden there 3 dozen roses, a dozen red for love, yellow for friendship, and white for purity. And they started walking forward and handing her the roses. And I explained to her, this white is our purity. That's like our super glue. It's like the sacrifice, that fire of love. Then this yellow represents our friendship. You're my best friend. And the Bible says he who has found a friend has found a sturdy shelter, a treasure. And then I said this red represents our love. And I just want to love you for life. And then I just dropped down on my knees, and the whole high school jumps up. They start screaming. I'm like, shut up so I can ask her. And they got quiet. And I said, Kristalina, will you be my bride for life? And she said yes. And then after the assembly, students came up and they're like, do you guys do this at every assembly? And I'm like, no, that was it. That was the real thing. And so that's how we met and got started doing all this stuff. And then we continued to do it as a dating engaged couple. And now she'll continue to travel, speak with me on occasion, and then other times stay home with our beautiful 8 little kiddos. So that's kind of the beginning. Kristalina and I getting met. How did you and Philip Rivers meet? Some of you may know Philip Rivers, the quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts. And, we live in San Diego at the same time. And he actually reached out to me when I worked at Catholic Answers. And, because, being on a football team, a lot of times you're not necessarily always with the best company. And he reached out and just said, hey, I've seen some of your programs, read your books, love to meet up. And we kind of did lunch. And then I pulled the same thing on him. I'm like, hey, I got a chastity talk coming up. Do you want to get up there for 5 minutes and do a little story? And he's like, oh, yeah, I'd love to come. And so he came and surprised the students and did a talk for them for a few minutes. And he's got 9 kids. And he's got, 7 girls and 2 boys. And my wife and I have 6 boys and 2 girls. We'll probably arrange at least a couple marriages there. But, this guy's awesome. Just super down to earth. Really is. I mean, just a solid devotion to Our Lady. He and his wife, have just a beautiful family. And so I'd recommend watch this guy's stuff. If you go to chastity.com, we got a little slider with a video image of him. Watch this guy's videos on just character, chastity, modesty, a sacramental life. It's so neat to know that there's all-pro NFL quarterbacks that bring a priest with them on the road games so they will never miss the mass before the big game on Sunday. Here's a man who gets it. Purity is not the fruit of our own self-effort. It's a gift from Jesus Christ, and if we really want it, he'll give us that gift. And so that's kind of how I met Philip. What is the most beautiful place you've ever been in the world? How about the most peaceful place? Most beautiful place on the world, I think with no doubt was where I went with my wife on our honeymoon. We went to a place called Bora Bora. The image behind me is of Chuhupo. It's a world-famous surfing wave and on the island of Moorea. So we went over and actually got to see the wave while we were out there at our honeymoon. But no doubt, Bora Bora is the most beautiful place. Most peaceful place, I think it's always the same place, which is Eucharistic adoration. I remember being in the Philippines. For those of you watching from the Philippines, kumusta na kayo? Ang saya bumalik sa Pilipinas. Maraming salamat for watching today. For those of you in the Philippines, I remember coming to an adoration chapel there in the Philippines. I come to this church early in the morning. It's like 7 a.m. and people are leaving church. And I asked the lady there, was like the host, I'm like, oh, are they leaving mass? And she's like, oh, well, that mass just got finished. I'm like, it was Tuesday morning, like 7 a.m. and the mass already got done. And she says, yes, we have 8 daily masses because that's the devotional level of the people out there. 8 daily masses. And we pop into Eucharistic adoration. Nobody's wearing shoes. The reverence. They take off their shoes. They walk in there with reverence. And so to me, Eucharistic adoration is that eye in the storm, that no matter how crazy the hurricane getting, that's that one place where all things are still. And so I'd say the most peaceful place in the world, definitely Eucharistic adoration. Next question comes in from Olga. What is one thing I can tell my 20-year-old son to encourage chastity? One thing, but he will tune me out. I would say one thing, if you're going to do one thing, I would say fast for him. If you're going to say one thing to the guy and he's single, I would just recommend that you say to him, you know, if you want to get married, my son, you want to promise a woman, I'm going to love you, I'm going to honor you all the days of my life. Well, son, today is your day of your life. Love your bride before you ever meet her. Be faithful to her and honor her and respect her, even if you don't know her name yet. Even if you haven't seen her face, love her before you meet her. Because with all the desires that are going to come upon you in this world and all the temptations, in order to overcome any desire, you need a stronger desire. And the only desire strong enough to overcome lust is the desire for authentic sacrificial love. And if you can tap into that desire in him to love his bride all the days of his life, then he'll realize that the lust the world has to offer is simply boring. Next question comes in from Jenny. Conference podcast sounds great. What is your advice on countering sexual thoughts? When do you know it's going too far? Honestly, if your mind starts thinking, is this too far? It's too far. Because when we're pure, when we're chaste, when we're modest, our conscience is always at rest. When you're doing something good, you never make excuses for it. You never make justifications. Like if you're feeding the homeless, you never think, well, at least I'm not robbing a bank right now. You know, it's not that bad. Our conscience is at peace. And in the same respect with modesty, if you're thinking, is this too tight? Is this too low? Is that too short? We kind of answered our own question already. And so in terms of how far is too far, I would say deliberate sexual arousal and passion belongs within the sacrament of marriage. That is the healthy confines for that gift of sexual intimacy. And it's not just, okay, well, the actual act of sex is in marriage, but everything else goes. No, God is calling us to a fiery purity. And yeah, it might feel like this is separating, but I'm telling you, the devil promises, oh, this will bring you close together, but sin always isolates. God offers us this virtue of chastity that on the surface looks like it's creating distance, but the sacrifice of that will bring you closer than any pleasure on earth. And so in terms of what is my advice on countering sexual thoughts, don't try to stuff them. I shouldn't think about that. I shouldn't think about that. No, sexual desire, in a sense, is a gift of God. And the question is, what do we do when that desire comes? There's a reaction you get when you experience a sexual desire, and now you're given an opportunity for a reaction to that, a response to that. And so is your response to reduce somebody to their sexual value, or is your response to just pause and say, God, thank you for making that person beautiful, but now I need to love them instead of use them? And so what I would say, if like you get a pornographic flashback in your mind of something you saw a while ago and it's still bugging you, just stop. Thank you, God, for making that person beautiful, and then transform that temptation into intercession. Now, God, I pray for that person. I lift them up to you. I want to respond to their beauty of their body with love. Instead of using, I want to love them. And so this is meeting God in that moment of temptation. Instead of trying to stuff it and repress it, let's meet God there and transform temptation to intercession. Next question coming in from Alec. Is the podcast on Spotify? We've uploaded it, and if it's not there now, it'll be there, I think, in the next 24, 48 hours. So it's going to be on Spotify, on all the major platforms. But I know for sure it's already on iTunes, so you can listen to it there. In the meantime, next one's rolling in from Stacy. I got a question on healing and how to find your soulmate without losing your soul. It talks about healing. How do you know when you're actually healing? I think the first step on healing is try to make sure you're not infecting the wound, meaning if you're a state of desolation, of hurting, that you're not turning to false consolations to mend that wound. So if you've been burned in the past, just make sure you're not jumping into stuff that's not going to make things better, that's only going to make it worse. And is healing going to be a difficult process? Is it going to hurt? Is it going to take some time? Absolutely. St. Francis de Sales said, have patience with the whole world, but first of all, with yourself. And so don't give up on this healing process. If it's a substantial wound, go to counseling for this. Don't be ashamed to bring your wounds to the counselor. There's a website called CatholicTherapists.com that I really recommend going to. Find a counselor in your area if you think you could use that, and just tap into some of that wisdom to try to not heal alone. Chris Stefanik, he says, your mind is like a bad neighborhood. You don't want to go in there by yourself. You need some company before you go in there. Likewise with counseling. Don't try to heal on your own. Tap into the wisdom of counselors, and it's going to help you in that process. Next question coming from Kristalina. She says, Kristalina is her name. She says, I'm Kristalina too, but I've never met a Kristalina. How is her name chosen? Her mom just made up her name, I guess. I think she liked the name Crystal, but just tacked on Ina at the end to make it creative. So I'm glad you guys have kind of virtually met in some way through Skype here and Facebook. So good to meet you, Kristalina. Lindsay says, I'm almost past young adult age, and I've never been married. How can I fully live my single life while knowing that God could bring a husband into my life, but he honestly might not? Lindsay, during the conference that we're about to launch, the virtual Catholic conference, we have a ton of talks on singleness. Not just singleness for people that are 21, 22, but people whose singleness seems to be dragging on a heck of a lot longer than they wanted it to be dragging on. I'm like, okay, God, I'm ready. What's going on? What's the deal here, God? And we've got a lot of talks that cover this issue because this can be a particularly painful cross of, okay, God, how come what I want does not seem to be what you want for me right now? I feel like I'm following your will. I feel like I'm ready to start a family, but there doesn't seem to be a worthy spouse anywhere in sight. If you find yourself in this situation, a couple just thoughts. One, there are some good online Catholic dating websites that I'd recommend, like a CatholicChemistry.com or AveMariaSingles.com. These can be good ways to meet solid Catholics. There's other Catholic dating sites that may be bigger, but I've heard some personal reviews of some on those where people said, yeah, you just don't know what you're going to get there. The person might be really solid Catholic, or they might be just wanting a Catholic bride, but not willing to live it themselves. So you want to be discerning, when you're using a bigger pool on these dating websites. But I would encourage you, what is the passion that God has given to you to serve his church? Is it within the pro-life movement? Is it youth ministry? Is it chastity? What is it? Dive in there. It was Curtis Martin from Focus who said, look, don't run after who the one is for you. Is she the one? Is he the one? He said, no, run with all that you have after God. With all your might, run after God. And after a while of running, then look and see who's keeping up with you. That's the type of person you want to end up with. And so I would encourage you to keep your focus on God, run with him of all of your might, dive into the ministries, the passions that God has placed on your heart. And it could be by doing that ministry, you could meet the person that God has in mind for you if he calls you to the sacrament of marriage. But again, we don't know how many hours we have left. We don't know how many days or decades we have left. But all that we know is we have today, so let's give every moment to him. Because if you can get in the habit of saying that yes to God each day, the little yeses, the big yes, I think, will fall into place at the right time. Next question comes in from Jenna. It says, for the ladies, what should we do if a guy says he wants to hang out with us and we're not sure if it's a date or not? I once knew a guy who kept going back and forth on whether it or not it was a date. Jenna, God bless you, because this is what I found is one of the most gigantic frustrations of women when it comes to the dating scene. Any guy who's tuning in right now on Facebook Live, on behalf of Jenna and every woman on the face of the earth, if you ask a girl on a date, there is one word you must say, okay? The word is date. You have to use the D word, okay? Date. Can I take you on a date on Saturday night? Not, do you want to chill? Do you want to hang out? Do you want to watch Netflix? Do you want to come over? Like, if you say those words, she has no clue what you're talking about. If you say, oh, we should hang out, in her brain, it's like, okay, what does hang out mean? Does hang out mean like this is a romantic date? He's going to take me out to do this fancy thing? Or does this mean he wants to like hang out in his basement and play Minecraft and have Domino's pizza and garlic butter sauce? Like what does this mean to hang out? Avoid all these ambiguous terms. Be very clear with the girl. And if you're the girl of just like, okay, hang out, what does this mean? You could give it a try, go on it once and see, okay, what was this guy's intentions? But if he's indecisive and flip-floppy, girls, I would just say you don't really want to waste your time. Sarah Swafford, she wrote this book called Emotional Virtue, and in it she has this incredible anecdote where this girl comes up to Sarah and says, Sarah, there's this guy I really like, and I think he likes me. We work together, and he's always texting me. But then when his friends are around, he acts like I'm invisible. And 1 minute it seems like it's going this way, the next minute it's going that way. And Sarah said, why don't you just ask him what he's feeling? Kind of define the relationship. And the girl's like, well, I don't want to be that girl who asks him to define everything. And Sarah said, how long has this been going on for? And the girl said 6 months. Sarah's like, dude, that's a long time. Sit around and wait for some flip-floppy guy to make up his mind. Ask him what his intentions are. And the girl did ask him what his intentions were. And the guy said, oh, we're just friends. If you can't control your emotions, then that's your own problem. Whoa. You know what? That stings and it stinks. But you know what? Thanks be to God, she figured that out now instead of 3 years from now, being dragged back and forth with this flip-floppy guy. You want a guy. And just so you guys know, listening, decisiveness and confidence and clarity is so attractive for a woman. And I'm not talking about some machismo, bossy attitude, but just simple clarity. Not only clarity to begin the relationship, but clarity to finish the relationship. Don't walk off the face of the earth if this isn't working out well. Just as clear and intentional as the beginning of a relationship be, the end should be just as clear and intentional, where you don't leave her hanging, ghosting that girl. Clarity. And this, girls, is not a naive expectation. This is a standard, and you deserve this clarity. So, girls, if you are not dating a guy, do not act like you're his girlfriend. You're not his girlfriend. Sorry to break the news. You're not his girlfriend. If you are his girlfriend, don't behave like his wife. And if you are his wife, live as one. And if men would just do the same thing, imagine how much simpler relationships would be if we just kept things in the proper place. Next question, Marcus. What is the meaning of my identity as a man versus a woman before the eyes of God? Specifically, the contrast on a spiritual level. Whoa, heavy question here. Well, God in creating you a man, Marcus, has revealed your identity to you in and through your body. In virtue of being a man, God has stamped into your body not just your identity, you're a man, but your mission stamped into your body. So a man's body reveals strength. It also reveals you're the initiator of life-giving love. It's stamped into your body. And so I think on an ontological level, this just isn't who you should be or how you should act. This is who you are. An initiator who uses that God-given strength to initiate life-giving love. Not just in a physical way, but in a spiritual way. It's stamped into your body. We wrote a book called Theology of His Body, Her Body, that kind of explores this. And so the relief in this is that if we're experiencing gender dysphoria or questioning, is this do I have the right body? Do I have the right gender? You know you're a man, not because you fit all the perfect stereotypes of masculinity. None of us do. You know you're a man because you have the body of a man. It's the Father's gift to you. And so I'd recommend a couple resources, Theology of His or Body, and then we have a whole talk just on the subject called Theology of Your Body. And you can listen to it on iTunes. It's on our website, chastity.com. That'll help you go deeper into that. Next question comes in from Kirishe, Kerishe. I probably mauled your name. I'm sorry, but that's how it is. How to overcome the fear of not finding the one. Well, one thing I'd recommend is listen to our podcast that just came out. We just did a podcast on Is He the One and Is She the One? Because we got to ask ourselves, okay, did God create one specific person for all eternity that's meant for you and you alone? Well, some could say yes, and there's biblical evidence for that. You look at Joseph and Mary, certainly created for each other. Old Testament, we have Tobiah. The archangel says to Tobiah that Sarah, his bride, was set aside for him before the foundation of the world, that God had created her for him. Pretty clear evidence. You got Adam and Eve. They're created for each other. Granted, Adam didn't have a lot of other options at that point, neither did Eve, but truly created for each other. And so what about us? Like, is there one specific soulmate out of the 7 billion people in the world? Some people would say no. There are innumerable viable options of godly spouses that you might choose from, and God will bless that if you discern it. And okay, I can see some merit in that. My belief on this is that divine providence intervenes to the extent that we make room for it. So the more that we open our lives up to the will of God, the more He can guide us and lead us. Now, this does not mean that His timetable will always be according to ours, because this is a struggle of like, God, if you're all loving and you're all powerful, how come I'm not getting what I want? Why isn't this unfolding in my timeline? But I think what I'd encourage you to look at is, where is your hope? Is your hope in a sacrament? Is your hope in a person? Is your hope in a relationship? If so, you will regardless end up disappointed, because our hope can only be in God alone, and our peace can only be in God alone. Because if we make an idol out of something, it'll control our hearts. And it was C.S. Lewis who said, not are only are idols meant to be broken? Idols will break the hearts of their worshipers. And your longing for marriage is a good and it's a beautiful and it's a holy gift that God gave you to long for that beautiful sacrament. But we've just got to make sure that this longing that we have does not evolve into an idol where it contains our peace, that if it doesn't unfold, that we lose our peace. Christ wants to give you his peace. And so in the midst of this aloneness, you could pray for your future spouse if God is calling you to marriage, because in that way you're loving that person perhaps before you meet. And if God wants you to get married one day and have a family, you got to give that family the gift of faith. But God can't give you faith unless he first tests you and drags you through a desert alone with him. And sometimes if we don't go out to the desert to meet Christ, Christ will bring the desert to us. And I know these single years sometimes feel like that desert, but just cling to him to be alone with him. And in his timing, we alone know when his timing is perfect. But just place all of your trust in him. Get involved in good Catholic young adult or single groups, and some of the other websites I recommended earlier may be helpful. A couple more questions. Rachel says, how do you let go of your desires for marriage and family to accurately and truly discern a vocation in the consecrated life? You don't. Okay, hear that again. How do you let go of your desires for marriage and family to accurately and truly discern a vocation, marriage, life? You don't. You don't have to let go of your desires for marriage and family, because it is precisely those desires that will make you an extraordinary religious sister. Mother Angelica was walking around with some seminarians as they were discerning their vocations. And she told these seminarians, guys, I want you to understand something. If you don't want to become a husband and a father, we don't want you in this seminary. We don't want you if you don't want to become a husband and a father. And I'm sure that made some of the guys stop in their tracks. Like, wait, you don't want us? If we don't want to be those things, why would she say that? It's because what kind of priest would a man be if he didn't have the heart of a father? What kind of priest would a man be if he didn't have the love of a bridegroom to lay down his life for his bride so that his family might have life through that? This is the very call of the priesthood. So all men, in virtue of their manhood, are called to fatherhood, just as every woman, in virtue of being a woman, is called to motherhood, whether it be spiritual or biological. Regardless of what vocation you choose, you'll feel an ache and you'll feel pain. I remember one priest once sharing with me very personally how, at one point in his priesthood, he wept over this. He wept over the ache of wanting a wife and a children and not having those biological children. This priest to me was so spiritually mature that he could pray into that ache, that he could be so raw and open with God instead of stuffing his feelings and just until they repressed and they exploded, that he was able to meet God in those tears and to feel what he was feeling. This is healthy. And if we don't know how to deal with the negative feelings and we just try to stuff it, it's just going to lead to an explosion. I had heard once of a town in Italy that when a woman's husband dies, the woman dresses in black for as long as she wants. She just wears black. She just goes goth for a while. Might go goth for a week, might go goth for 5 years, but it's basically her way of telling everybody, hey, I'm hurting right now. I'm feeling some pain. I just lost my husband. But how healthy? How healthy to be able to process your wounds and to feel what you're feeling. And so don't think that you need to snuff those desires. Know that if you do become a consecrated religious sister and you offer up that, it's a great sacrifice. Because if you give up like eating dirt for Lent, I mean, it's not much of a sacrifice. Oh, for 40 days, I will eat no dirt. Hey, wow. But if you're giving up something of great value, the sacrifice becomes immeasurable. I remember doing youth ministry back in college, and I met a high school kid. He just came into the Catholic Church. He's all pumped up, and he's like, I am giving up meat and vegetables all of Lent. And I'm thinking like, wow, it's pretty extreme, man. And he ended up passing out during a football game and falling off the bleachers. He went a little bit overboard, but if you really want to sacrifice, you kind of go big in a sense. And so when it comes to your vocation, if you become a wife and a mother, you'll feel that ache of the religious life. But if you're not sure which it is it this, is it that, put that seed in the ground, meaning give it a shot at a convent. Check out a vocations retreat, because maybe you'll find that this wasn't your calling, and then you can leave that discernment process and enter marriage at peace, that I really did give it all. I gave it my all, and God made it clear and at peace. You look at Jackie and Bobby Angel, Jackie Francois, she dated a guy, and in their dating relationship, she's saying, okay, this is the one. And then he said, Jackie, I feel called to the priesthood. She's like, oh, okay, I can't hold on to you. And he became a priest. Dates another guy. Oh, this is the one. Oh, Jackie, I feel called to the priesthood. Okay, here we go, God. Dates another guy. In the middle of their dating relationship, he discerns that he's called to the priesthood, and he leaves. And she's like, okay, God, enough. Like, I gave you 3. And who does she meet? Bobby Angel, who had discerned the priesthood, realized it wasn't his calling, left the seminary, met her, and now they're married and they just had another baby a couple days ago. And so I was like, okay, God, that's fair. I give you 3, you give me 1, fair enough. And so, but Bobby is entering into marriage with such a beautiful spiritual formation that he gave God his all. Instead of being afraid of that calling and then running into marriage and then always wondering, was God calling me? But I was afraid to say yes. And so I would just encourage you, Rachel, be at peace and know that those desires that God gave you are holy, and he will fulfill them in one way or another through spiritual or physical motherhood. Michelle asks, I've always wanted to know how much caffeine do you drink, Jason? I am not a caffeine kind of guy. I pretty much drink water. I will drink milk. I love milk. And I'll drink a glass of red wine. I like a red blend or a Merlot. And then before I work out, I'll have a little pre-energy workout drink. I think there might be some caffeine in that. But other than that, no Mountain Dews anymore, any of that stuff. In fact, the other day I said, kids, you know how much sugar is in one of these drinks? And I said, just look on the back. Okay, here we got Mountain Dew. It was like 77 grams of sugar. I said, okay, what you got to do, divide that by 4 and then pour that many teaspoons of sugar into a cup. This is like 80 grams of sugar. So I just got a little teaspoon out and we lopped in 20 teaspoons of sugar to show them what that actually looks like and 1 serving of Mountain Dew. And the kids are like, that's amazing. That's disgusting. And so I'm not, guilting any of you for drinking soda, but it's a real eye opener if you realize how much sugar is packed into these things. So, nope, don't drink any caffeine. Kristalina drinks enough coffee for the both of us. She has like an IV bag that she runs around the house and kind of just taps a vein and takes the caffeine in straight there. But when you got 8 kids, that's how she gets through. But next question comes in from Shina. How can I encourage my husband to lead our 14-year-old son to greater understanding of godly manhood and purity? This is a challenge, because sometimes guys get a little defensive because of our pride that, we don't want anyone telling me how to be a man or whatever. But, maybe for Mother's Day, you're a day late on that one, for your birthday or whatever, you can say, okay, for my birthday, for our anniversary, just pick some holiday where he's obligated to give you something. Say, I don't want you to give me anything. I just want you to read this awesome book on fatherhood. And I've got one sitting, let me see, where it is right here. Okay. So here, check this out. This is Devin Shad wrote this book called Show Us the Father, 7 Secrets to be a Father on Earth like the Father in Heaven. It is an awesome book. It would make a great gift for your husband. You can get it at chastity.com, but it's my favorite book that I ever read on fatherhood that really opens up our eyes to our calling. And he kind of starts off the book with this little anecdote, and he's like, imagine your family is in this war-torn region and the enemies are pressing in and then you have to escape. And so at night you escape with your families and you come to this big brushy, dense jungle thorn area, but you got to pass through that, and who knows what creatures are in there, but you got to pass through that to break the other side. Because on the other side is a village where there's peace and there's always fruit on the vine and you need to get your family there. And as your family approaches the entryway of this dark place, you say the one thing that every courageous husband should say to his wife: after you, honey. And he starts with this antidote like, no, that's not what a man does. A man doesn't say, okay, you guys go in there first and I'll just kind of follow. No, he takes the lead into the dark. And so it's an awesome book to encourage men to be the husbands and fathers that they should be. And so I'd recommend that. Devin Shad also has CDs that your husband might want to listen to just to help him in his vocation to fatherhood. But ultimately, the boys need to see it in the dad, because men learn manhood from men, right? We don't just learn it from a DVD or a book series. Like, we got to be around the presence of authentic men if we're going to pick this up. And so just encourage him to not just spend quality time with him, but just that quantity time with his son. Next question comes in from Brennan. How is NFP basically not a form of contraception? Good question, Brennan. One way to think of it is this. The analogy has often been given that imagine 2 people wanted to maintain a slim figure. One of the people, so they got both the same end, but they take different means to get there. One of them practices temperance and refrains from eating fatty food, and the other person binges on food and then purges out the effects. Both of them arrive at the same goal: to stay slim. However, one practiced gluttony while the other practiced temperance. NFP and contraception is similar in that respect, and this is obviously not to make light of people who have a legitimate eating disorder who should be treated with compassion and respect and love. We're just talking about the ethics of this thing, that when it comes to natural family planning, if they are sinning, the question would be when. Okay, are we sinning by not having marital intercourse? Well, no, abstinence is not a sin. Okay, are we sinning when we come together as one flesh? Well, no, that wouldn't be a sin. So where would the sin be? Janet Smith says, well, look, if contraception and NFP are the same thing, then just use NFP. And couples are like, whoa, well, that's a really big difference. If there's a big difference in the means, it's an indication there could be a big difference in the morality. And so the church is not opposed to controlling births, something a lot of people don't understand. The church expects married couples to responsibly plan their family. Responsible family planning sometimes means having more kids, and sometimes it means not conceiving right now. And the church judges the prayerful judgment of the families to make that decision. What contraception does is it binges on the act of marital closeness, but then you purge out the life-giving effects. God has joined life and love together, and we shouldn't separate them. Imagine if a man were to say to a woman, well, I want to become one flesh with you and be emotionally close to you, but I don't want any babies. That's contraception. Well, imagine if you did it the other way. Well, I want to have babies with you, but I don't want to become emotionally close to you. I just want to kind of use you as an incubator for my offspring. Most people are like, that guy's weird, okay? Stay away from him. Well, it's just the opposite side of the same coin, that what God has joined together, we shouldn't separate. And NFP taught me my wife's body, perfect. She doesn't need drugs, doesn't need pills, doesn't need any of that stuff. You know what her body needs? To be understood. Because if we can understand her body, then instead of suppressing her fertility with chemicals to conform to our desires, we conform our desires to the perfect way that her body has already been created. And this, to me, is authentic sexual liberation. Tanya asks, hi, Jason, how do you discern your vocation? One thing I'd recommend, Tanya, is make sure to click the link here on Facebook and join the virtual Love Life conference we're launching in 2 weeks. We already have, I think, like 7 or 8 presenters who are doing TED Talks specifically on discerning your vocation. How do I know this is the right person? How do I know this is the right vocation, the right calling for me? How do I know what it is for me? And it's all free. You can register today, sign up for this conference, share it with your friends, and you're going to have a lot more content at that conference for free than I could give you right now. But I would say to discern your vocation, make sure you're not choosing a vocation out of guilt. And what I mean by that is like, okay, well, I'm a prayerful person, and so I guess if I'm prayerful and I love God, then I should become a nun or a priest. And if I'm not doing that, then I guess I'm not giving God my all, and I should feel guilty about getting married. This isn't really healthy, because if God wants you to become his bride in the religious life, I think he'll give you that calling. I think he'll give you that desire to make a gift of yourself to him. Now, as I had said earlier, you are going to have a tug of war a little bit, as I had mentioned to Rachel. You're going to feel that back and forth, and that's healthy and that's good. But my priest in San Diego, buddy, he says to me, the Holy Spirit speaks to you 100 times a day. How many times do you say yes? How many times do you listen? If you get in the habit of saying those little yeses to God, of no, I'm not going to listen to that song while I'm working out. I'm just going to skip to the next song. Or, yeah, I'm going to do that little favor for my family that I don't really want to do. Yes, yes, yes. Get in the habit of little yeses, and the big yes will fall into its place. And Clara asks, what are your views on dating in high school? Is it worth it? Clara, no, I'm sorry. It's not. I mean, God love you. But even if you meet a really awesome guy in high school, but here's the problem. Graduation comes soon. He's going to go to Louisiana State University. You could end up going to, UCLA. And then you got some long distance 4-year relationship while he's meeting 20,000 college girls. Then you're going to get a job in Houston. He's going to get one in Charlotte. It's like, oh, wow. Like the average adult marries in America at about the age, I think it's like at 28 years old now, meaning you could have a decade before your wedding, which makes maintaining a chaste romantic relationship pretty difficult if marriage is so far away. And so I'm not saying to date in high school is unethical or it's wrong if you do it, but I'm just saying practically, it's not, in my opinion, the best timing to start that up. I would say build that foundation of lasting love through friendship, and then you're giving that relationship the best chance to go the distance. Because long-term, long-distance dating relationships, pretty hard to manage. Long-term, long-distance friendships are pretty practical. You can make those things last. And so build the foundation of lasting love. I don't think you'll just be disappointed. Next question comes in from Paul. How can I help my male friend who deals with same-sex attraction without becoming a temptation to him? I think one of the main things that men who experience same-sex attraction need are male companions who are not afraid to be in their presence and to love them as brothers in Jesus Christ. Are not afraid, well, I don't want to get him all tempted. I don't want to get too close. I don't want him to be crushing on me. Forget that. you just love that man. You love him as God created you to love him. Because if there's anything they need, I think it's authentic, masculine, chaste love and affirmation and approval in their lives. And if every guy who they consider like a real man just recoils from their presence, it makes them feel like less of a man. And for guys who do experience same-sex attractions, like, please hear me out. Like, you are no less of a man because you experience homosexual attractions. Do you believe that you are? Like who told you that lie? Your manhood is not defined by your sexual attractions. I mean, I kind of wish it was, right? Because then I'd be like, wow, I think women are gorgeous. Like, I am such a man. Like, it doesn't work like that. That is not the barometer of my masculinity, how pretty I find girls to be. No, your barometer of your masculinity is how willing you are to conform your life to Jesus Christ and how willing you are to give yourself to him in imitation of his gift of self. That's the measure of an authentic man. And so don't beat yourself up. You know, if you experience this attraction or that attraction, your attractions don't define you. It's not who you are. LGBTQS, straight is not who Jason Everett is. Son of God is who Jason Everett is. Gay is not who you are. Who you are is God's beloved child. Attractions, they're real, something we experience. But if you pin your identity on your sexual experiences and attractions, I think life is just going to get confusing pretty fast because we're a lot more than our attractions. So if your friend experiences this, man, seek him out, spend time with him, spend more time with him, get more of your buddy guys that are authentic Catholic men to spend time with this guy. Don't treat him like he has leprosy because he experienced these attractions. Be unafraid to be in his presence. If he experiences a sexual attraction to you, he can work through that with God. And I don't think you're going to be inadvertently flirting with him or being immodest with him or doing anything. Understand, is John Paul II, he said, God uses human friendships to draw hearts to the source of divine charity. And so human friendship is one of the most beautiful forms of affection. And I think what's needed is chaste masculine love, and you play an important role in bringing that to your friend, Paul. Next question comes in from Miranda. Aside from the obvious like addictions to alcohol or porn, what are some of the red flags showing that someone isn't mature enough to enter marriage? One, I would look at other attributes in their life. What type of guys do they hang out with, Miranda? Are they hang out with guys who are godly men bringing out the best in them? Are they hanging out with guys who are just super immature and 27 years old and still living in their mom's basement playing video games? Does this guy have drive? Does he have ambition in a healthy way to do something noble and good, not only for his life, but for the entire civilization? Does he have faith on his own? Or are you like the spiritual, mother in this relationship, kind of drag him to church? Because you want a guy who's not only just going to respect your morality, you want a guy who actually shares your morality. Not just a guy who's willing for you to be pure because, I respect it if that's what you want. You want a guy who has that desire himself. Because, anybody can train a dog to balance a bone on their nose. Don't eat it, don't eat it, don't eat it. Okay, now you can have it. A lot of guys are in relationships with the purities like that, where she says, I can't have it yet. She says, I can't have it yet. Well, I'm just waiting until she says yes, and then it's mine. That's just unhealthy, making the girl be the chastity cop. So make sure this guy has his own morality and that you're not having to be his mother or his messiah. Make sure you guys can disagree respectfully and lovingly. These are important things. I remember one girl was in college and had a fight with her boyfriend, came home crying to her dad, like, he and I got in an argument. And the girl's crying, and the dad's like, yes. So the dad's clapping, and the girl's like looking at him through these teary eyes of like, what? You're clapping because we got in a fight? And he said, this is great. Now you can see how you guys work through problems together. It's okay. You're not always going to disagree. You're not always going to agree in your marriage, but you got to know how you disagree. It's fine if you passionately disagree, but can you do so respectfully? Can you do so lovingly? And so you want to learn those things prior to marriage instead of jumping into marriage, because a lot of people honestly throw physical pleasure at problems, even in marriage. Let's just throw sex on top of that. Now we're good. No, we're covering up something. We're not really healing it. And yes, that act of intimacy can be healing within a marriage, but outside of marriage, it in a sense blinds you and it binds you to that person. And so purity will give you a lot more clarity to see the value. Lisa writes in, are there support groups on social media for Catholic teens with same-sex attraction? I would recommend that you check out Eden Invitation. Go to EdenInvitation.com. Courage is out there, and Courage is awesome. It's a great place for people to network who experience same-sex attractions. A lot of people involved in Courage tend to be a little bit older. Eden Invitation is a brand new ministry by Shannon and Anna, awesome group of girls. One of them is actually doing a talk for us at the upcoming Catholic Love Life Conference. We actually have several presenters, 2 or 3, just of the girls who are experiencing same-sex attractions, who talk about their journey in practicing chastity, experiencing same-sex attractions. So don't miss their talks. The link is there on Facebook to register for free to the Love Life Conference. Watch their testimonies. But go to Eden Invitation. They've got some great blogs, videos, network. They've got retreats. I love the stuff that those guys are doing over there. Paul says, your kids are hilarious. Any recent funny stories? Oh boy. You know what I do? And I would recommend this to all of you. I have a little thing on my phone, a little notes app that you can click on right there. And whenever the kids do anything funny or whatever, I immediately type that thing in. And, I click it, and if it's funny, if it's holy, if it's hilarious or not so holy, I put it in there. My little boy, Joseph, the other day, because we're explaining to him, like sometimes stuff comes up where he sees stuff, and he asked me, Dad, he's like, is it possible to cuss with your middle toe? I'm like, no, Joseph, you can't cuss with your middle toe, but you shouldn't try nonetheless. But I mean, the stories that comes up out of these kids, just crazy. But I recommend when you become parents, write down all their funny stuff. My little boy, Michael, when he was 3, he's like, Dad, I want to be a priest when I grow up. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. What makes you want to be a priest? And he said, so I can do everything that God told me to do. I'm like, 3 years old. I'm like, dude, I need whatever prayer life you have. I could really use that. And so write down the stories your kids doing funny stuff. Leah asks, hey, Jason, do you ever plan to talk about chastity in France? My country would surely need a chastity talk. I would love to come and speak at France. All that's needed is someone in France to invite us and to set up an event. We do have my book, If You Really Loved Me, that's available on Amazon.com. I think it's Amazon.com.fr, whatever your French Amazon is. If You Really Love Me has been translated into French, and you can get it on Amazon. Someone just translated Pure Manhood, a book I wrote, into French, and so that's he just sent me the PDF of it. We haven't published it yet, but you can reach out to us at chastity.com. I can email you the booklet if you want in French, but if you know any groups that want to do it, English speaking or can use a translator, we can do it through Skype, through Zoom, or God willing, one day come overseas and do it in France. Let's see. Got 5-6 questions left. Are there any books on healing that you recommend? A couple books I'd recommend. Let me see if I can reach it. My wife has one, I think it's out of reach, called Made New, Healing and Hope for Abuse Survivors. And so it's called Made New, and she launched a website called womenmadenew.com. Check that stuff out because it's so important to dedicate yourself to your healing process. I also recommend the book called Captivating by Stacey Eldridge. And there's a lot of stuff on healing from the father wound because a lot of girls have that father wound, something the father did or failed to do to affirm her and love her. And I really recommend that book, Captivating. It's really good. Next question from Marcus. I have a gay female friend who wants to love another girl. If it's not for marriage, what love from God might she have to give her very close friend? One thing we need to understand is that the Catholic Church is not telling your friend not to love. I would actually propose that the Catholic Church is pretty much the only institution that is asking your friend to love her friend, calling them to love in a pure and sacrificial way. Because a lot of us think that sex equals love, and if I can't express love in a genital way, then my ability to express love to this other person is being taken from me. But you've got to understand that love is not just what feels good in the moment. It does not just unite us emotionally or physically in this life. Love always bears the fingerprint of God, of peace. It has an eternal fingerprint on it that I don't just want to be with you tonight. I want to be with you for all eternity. And through that sacrifice of chastity, they're loving each other. Because what we don't realize is that abstinence can be a profound expression of love. Think of some high school boyfriend, wants to sleep with his girlfriend, but has enough love for her to say, look, as much as I may want to do this with you tonight, I want to fall in love with you for all the right reasons. And I know it's not best for you to worry if you're pregnant next week and your parents to find out and all that stuff. So by not sleeping with you tonight, my abstinence will be a greater expression of love for you tonight than making love to you. Because I'm doing what's best for you, not just what feels good for me. abstinence expresses love. In the same-sex relationship as well, abstinence is a profound expression of sacrificial love. And so I'd recommend, again, check out EdenInvitation.com and watch the women on our Catholic Love Life conference in 2 weekends talk about how they're able to express love. They don't feel like their capacity to love has been stripped away from them. They feel like God is calling them into an even deeper path of sacrificial love. 4 questions left. Claudia, how do you create conviction to an 18-year-old on a committed relationship that premarital sex is not okay? Well, one, if you're in the relationship, I do recommend against missionary dating, meaning dating some guy, hoping you can fix him and change him and give him morality and things like that. Missionary friendship is great. Missionary dating relationships, someone usually does get changed. And more often it's not the bad person for the better, it's the good person for the worst. And I'm not saying you can't influence this person and help them, but make sure that they're not pulling you away from God. What you could do is share resources with them. On our website, we've got copies of our videos, of our talks that you can show them for free on YouTube. Share that stuff with him. Because if you tell a guy we're not going to do this stuff, you're going to get one of 3 reactions. Either he's a jerk about it, we can't do this, would you like another guy? That's his reaction, guilt and anger, get away. Second reaction, he acts like he's okay with it. 2 weeks, he's back into it. Well, can we at least do this or that? You want a guy who just won't wait for you, he'll wait with you, that shares your morality instead of just tolerates it. And so tell him, look, if I want to save that for my husband. I don't know if you're that guy, maybe you are, but I want my wedding night to be something special. And hey, I may not be perfect, I may have made some mistakes, but I want to love my husband for all the days of my life, including the days spent before I even meet him. And if a guy doesn't respect that, then unfortunately he doesn't respect you. And if he's like, well, virginity is like, it's not that big of a deal. You could say, look, honey, if it's not that big of a deal, then why are you so interested in getting it? All right. So be bold, keep your standards high as heaven, and you will not regret that. Next question. Someone just texted and said we got more than 7,000 people registered now for the Catholic Love Life Conference. So please telling your friends. Put this out on social media. This thing is free. We got more than 70 presenters. Going to be awesome. Next comment comes in from Dwayne. I just found out my 17-year-old son is sexually active with his girlfriend. What should I tell him? I think you need to have a good, honest man-to-man conversation with this guy of saying, son, I love you, and I'm not coming to you to beat you over the head, not coming to beat you up, but I want to show you how to love her even more. I want to show you how to love her even more sacrificially. My job is not to drive a wedge between you guys. What I want to do is I want to show you how to love this girl, not just in a way that feels good for the both of you. I want you to learn how to sacrifice yourself for love of her, to die to yourself, to do what's best for this girl. And I think a son will respond to that. Like, I'm not coming here to beat you up, boy. And if she keeps dragging him away from God, you need to put your foot down, and I would, put some rules down to separate this relationship as long as he's living under your house. But before you get to that point, I'd really try to lovingly coach your son of just like, son, I understand you're doing this stuff, and yet it hurts mom and dad. But I want to talk to you, and I'm sorry. Over the last 17 years, maybe we haven't had enough man-to-man conversations, and I'm not saying this to beat you over the head, but I just want to show you how to love a woman rightly, because this is somebody's daughter. Maybe you're going to get to marry this girl, but there's a probability that this might not be your future wife, and you want to honor her future husband. You want to honor her father, mother, and just to try to come in there so he realizes that you are his ally and finding and giving and receiving authentic love, not just his enemy. And you could maybe ask him to watch our chastity talk, which is Love or Lust, and you can, get that online and maybe show that to him or have him listen to that so he can understand you're just calling him to love her more, not less. Last 2 questions. What do you see as the premier issue for men in today's age? I think there's no doubt it's porn. Our Bishop Olmsted, he's awesome. He said, guys, realize that God has a plan for your life, but the devil also has a plan for your life. And I think one of the devil's biggest plans for man's life, get us hooked on porn so we miss our vocation entirely. Because we're too busy building up, as C.S. Lewis said, this harem of imaginary brides. We got to break free from that stuff, discover our vocation. Covenant Eyes is a great resource for doing that. Screen about accountability stuff. If you go to the conference in 2 weekends, watch it for free online. There's all kinds of stuff for how to break free from porn. Last question. If you only want to answer this, it's a tough question. A male friend struggles with the issue of autogynephilia when a man is sexually aroused by the thought of himself as a female, and it's really complex and damaged my relationship with him. Any help? Well, one thing, I think it's really good that he's gotten far enough in his own journey to realize that this is what is going on in his life. And so I think you need to take an interest in his entire life. Not just that issue. Because if every time we talk to somebody, we're just hitting on his issue and his thing, and that's your problem, we're helping him to think of himself as nothing more than this issue, but take an interest in his entire life. I'd even recommend that he watch the conference that we have in 2 weeks, because we've got a guy called Walt Heyer who experienced gender dysphoria, because a lot of times people experience gender dysphoria are experiencing autogynephilia, auto, which is self, gyne, which is woman, philia, love of self, and that they're aroused by the thought of themselves as a woman, and they think it's a gender issue. But I would love this guy and recommend he watch Walt Heyer, share his whole story, his whole journey, because he bought into this whole gender theory thing, and this is who I need to be. And in all of us is a brokenness in our sexuality. And all of us is confusion and hurt, but Christ came to redeem and restore us. And so I'd recommend have him check out Walt. He also has a website called sexchangeregret.com, where he shares his story. And lots of people on YouTube now are talking about this. They're called detransitioners, where they're sharing their own stories of having fallen for this idea of gender theory and now reclaiming God's identity. And you know what? Over the course of our life, we're all going to experience 10 billion different temptations. Some are more disordered than others. Some are more intense than others, but we're all going to experience it in one way or another. It's all the universal condition of brokenness we experience in original sin. But just help your friend to see you're more than these attractions. You are the sum of God's love for you. It is the deepest truth of who you are. And so just keep loving that guy, inviting him on retreats, and just pouring in God's love, because he deserves it, and he needs to know that you are an image of love that God the Father has for him. That's the end of all the questions. It took up exactly an hour. Look at that. Perfect timing. But again, I want to encourage you guys. A couple things. One, Catholic Love Life Conference. Click the link on Facebook. Please share this with all your social media folks. Let's try to get at least 50,000 people come to this conference. Ask your parish priest, hey, can we put this in the parish bulletin? Get your youth minister, to get the youth group to sign up. There's all kinds of free and exclusive content that you can sign up for as well. It's going to be an amazing weekend, more than 70 speakers. Second thing, Love is Greater Than Lust podcast. Please subscribe to this thing. Share this with your buddies and your friends. Let's drive this up the iTunes and Spotify lists so people get exposed to this message of chastity. John Paul II said the word chastity needs to be rehabilitated. And simply by clicking like on that thing and subscribing, it's going to drive it up the list, and more people can hear this life-saving message. And then lastly, the link that we've got here on Facebook is Patreon. If you want to come alongside us and support us in this mission so we can reach more people than ever, click on Patreon, click your tier of support, and we're going to send you free shirts, free autographed books, free video calls to answer your questions, give you our email, give you a personal phone call, meet up for lunch when we come into town in your area next. All that stuff is on the Patreon link. But God bless you guys. Thank you for tuning in, and let us close our time together with a Hail Mary. In the name of the Father, the Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Saint Rita, pray for us. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. God bless all of you. I love you, and I will be praying for you. See you at the Catholic Virtual Love Life Conference.